You're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said Washington applauds PAZ's historic push to open Bolivia to global markets, as the U.S. welcomes economic reforms announced by Bolivian President Rodrigo Paz, saying the changes could boost foreign investment and benefit both countries. Nigeria's foreign minister has said Burkina Faso had released 11 personnel of the Nigerian Air Force who were detained on 8 December after their aircraft made an emergency landing. This comes as Burkina Faso's military regime led by Ibrahim Traoré released the personnel after meetings with a Nigerian delegation. Europe's top court has ruled that Poland's constitutional tribunal breached fundamental principles of EU law and cannot be considered independent or impartial due to irregular judicial appointments. The decision targets judicial reforms pushed by the Nationalist Law and Justice Party during its 2015 to 2023 rule. Europe's top court has ruled that Denmark's 2018 ghetto law, which forces relocation from minority-heavy neighborhoods, could violate EU anti-discrimination rules and amount to ethnic discrimination. The ruling by the European Court of Justice backs legal challenges from residents and deals a blow to Denmark's tough integration policies. The U.S. Senate has voted to pass the Department of Defense budget bill for fiscal year 2026, which included the repeal of the Caesar Act imposed on Syria since 2019. The bill won the support of 77 senators as Syria's Minister of Foreign Affairs and expatriate Assad Hassan al-Shaibani thanked the U.S. Senate. The World Bank and Syria's Ministry of Agriculture has begun discussions on a support program aimed at addressing key priorities in the country's agricultural sector. They met via video conference, including Isabel Liu, the bank's agriculture sector lead for Syria and Lebanon. The British police has said at the court hearing for Britain's Duke of Marlborough, Charles James Spencer Churchill, is charged with 3 counts of intentional strangulation, was adjourned. However, a new hearing date has yet to be set. The United States has approved a record $11.1 billion arms package for Taiwan, including HIMARS rocket systems. This comes as Taipei plans an additional $40 billion in defense spending, which could further strain U.S.-China relations. Now for this hour, we start with Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said that he still lacks clear answers from Washington on what security guarantees the United States would provide if Russia were to attack Ukraine again. He has asked directly how the U.S. would respond and how any guarantees would work in practice, questions that Kyiv says are essential for deterrence and peace negotiations. Let's listen in.
Є питання, на яке поки що я не можу отримати відповідь. Не можу, це не значить, що хтось не хоче. Ми просто ще не дійшли до цього. Питання в всіх гарантій безпеки. Коли у тебе не НАТО, так? Як НАТО? У тебе гарантії безпеки як НАТО? Хтось каже, може це ще й краще. Я не знаю. Я не берусь оцінювати. Я берусь оцінювати тільки одне. Відповідь на запитання, що зробить Сполучені Штати Америки, якщо Росія знов прийде з агресією. Що ці гарантії безпеки зроблять? Як це спрацює? Як спрацюють партнери всі? Яким чином, якою силою вони зупинять Москву? Конкретно. Мені здається, на це потрібно отримати відповідь. Нехай вона буде не публічною, але нехай вона буде закріплена в якихось документах.
Kyiv is in talks with Washington on a legally binding security pact that Ukrainian officials say should include NATO-style mutual defense commitments be ratified by the US Congress and clearly spell out steps the US and partners would take if Russia renewed aggression. Zelensky and US envoys have discussed draft documents in Berlin, and ongoing negotiations are underway, but details remain unresolved, and Zelensky wants specifics soon to reassure Ukrainians and allies alike. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Mohammad Osman. He's an international relations expert, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammad Osman, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, how aligned do you think all the parties, especially US, Russia, and Ukraine are in terms of, how close are they towards peace? And also, what challenges does Ukraine face in securing clear security guarantees for themselves?
Thank you for having me, Asuma. Always a pleasure to be with you. Of course, now the discussions about security guarantees take center stage within the negotiations between the Ukrainian and the American sides with regard, and the Europeans, of course, with regards to the efforts to push for a peaceful settlement of the Ukrainian conflict at the moment. Ukraine, of course, is understandably pushing for very stern security guarantees that will be legally binding through a treaty of some sort between Ukraine and the United States that is supposed to be, according to Ukraine and even to some American sources, that the proposed guarantees will be equivalent to security to the mutual defense provisions of Article 5 of the NATO Charter. Of course, Ukraine is pushing hard to achieve this. This will be a huge achievement for Ukraine if it is solidified or agreed upon. However, on the other hand, it is highly questionable whether Russia will actually accept such an arrangement. I do believe that Russia will definitely oppose any attempts to provide Ukraine with any blanket security guarantees that are equivalent to the Article 5 clause of the NATO Charter, because basically it defeats the purpose of the idea of Ukrainian neutrality. It defeats the purpose of the idea of the entire war, which is to prevent Ukraine from joining NATO. So if Ukraine will be accorded with, or rewarded with rather, privileges of membership, basically without having membership of the North Atlantic Treaty Alliance, then Moscow basically fought this entire war for nothing. So it is inconceivable that Russia, in my opinion, would accept such an arrangement at the moment. In Miami, in a few days, it is expected that a Russian delegation will arrive and it will hold talks with the Americans in order to review what the Ukrainians and the Europeans have provided, their input, the input they have provided to the American side, and to discuss them as part of efforts to reach an agreement. I do believe that the Russians will oppose that. We've all heard yesterday President Putin's speech at the Russian Ministry of Defense, very defiant, speaking about the necessity of achieving the goals of the so-called special military operation, and adamantly defending the military posture of his country with regards to pursuing the goals of the Russians in the war, basically saying that if we do not achieve them through peaceful means, we will achieve them through violence or military means, basically. So I think this is an indication that Russia is not really willing to compromise on its core positions, that is NATO, Ukraine's neutrality, and also its acquisition of the entirety of the Donbass.
And lastly, how might, now it's been almost 4 years of this war and back and forth without any breakthrough again and again and again. So how might delays again in finalizing this peace pact, security guarantees, everything influence the negotiations this weekend?
It seems the Americans are bracing for the possibility of the negotiations basically failing. And that is why they are reportedly preparing a new round of sanctions to impose on the Russians as a means to punish them for refusing the peace proposal if it ever comes to that. And if this happens, Asuma, that means that we will be back to square one, basically. The Americans trying to ante up the pressure on the Russians once again. And of course, the Russians will resist and they will reject the American and European pressures, and they will continue the war. The Russians hold the battlefield initiative, and they will just keep improving their situation on the battlefield, capturing more towns, more cities, more territories, which will make Ukraine's position even weaker and more precarious in any future negotiations.
Yes.
And then the Americans will, at the same time,
Yes.
be unwilling to provide Ukraine once again with unlimited military support, as the Biden administration used to do, for example, over the past 3.5 years. So they will go back to pressuring the Ukrainians once again. So we will be in this vicious circle, and the biggest loser at the end of the day, Asuma, will
Yes.
be Ukraine. They will be forced to accept a settlement that will be even worse than this one if
Yes.
the negotiations fail this time.
100%. Very insightful and extremely timely. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Mohammad Osman for joining us as an international relations expert from Cairo. Thank you very much. Now, for moving the focus on to India. Indian capital New Delhi has been engulfed in a dense layer of toxic smog, with AQI reaching as high as 492, sharply reducing visibility and causing discomfort for residents. Amid mounting concern over toxic air quality in the national capital, the Delhi government has announced a fresh set of steps to rein in pollution in the national capital. Key step among them is the implementation of the no PUC, no fuel rule. Now only BS5 compliant vehicles registered outside Delhi will be allowed to enter the city, while restrictions on construction activity and trucks carrying construction material will continue under GRAP norms. The compiled data showed that 15 stretches had high visible dust levels, 38 had moderate dust, 61 recorded low dust intensity, and 22 stretches showed no visible dust. Now for this discussion, we welcome former Ambassador Suresh Goel. He's a former diplomat, joins us live from New Delhi. Now, as both of us are in New Delhi, can you share how is this AQI affecting you, your daily life, your surroundings?
How do I describe it? It's rather painful to see the air quality of Delhi deteriorating the way it is. Breathing is a problem. I am very fond of taking morning walks. I'm an old Delhi wala, Chandni Chowk, and when I see Chandni Chowk engulfed in the kind of smoke and the pollution, it's really painful. I'm now living in New Delhi, but even there is no respite. All I would say really here is that if we want to make Delhi the true capital of India, as it's supposed to be, we need to really take all efforts, all wartime efforts, to make sure that the pollution is brought under control. Unfortunately, what I see happening are cosmetic measures, but nothing in the long-term planning.
Yes, indeed. I completely relate to you. How effective are these policies like the no PUC, no fuel rule like to be in? How do you think how effective will this be? And what role should state, central government also play in addressing this air quality issues?
You see, everything plays a part. Vehicular emissions, industry around. It's not just a construction effort. The construction effort, of course, contributes, but there is so much of industry around Delhi, in Gurgaon, in Faridabad, in Noida. All those industries contribute to the emission. And it's a combined effort, and therefore I do believe that the experts who should know and who can analyze things, they need to sit together and work out a plan how to bring it under control. It is not impossible to do, it's difficult, but it's can be done, provided we do believe that the citizens of India, citizens of Delhi, they do need to really enjoy the air and quality of life that they're entitled to. So at the moment, it is not. But there are countries in the world, there are cities in the world which have done it. I remember that during the Olympics, when Beijing was actually totally smoked, and I have lived in Beijing, and main pollution was contributed there by the coal-powered heating. They controlled it, even though it required a great deal of effort. So I know it can be done, but we need to really take very strict measures now.
100%. Thank you for sharing that, Ambassador Suresh Goyal. Please stay with us as we come back to our next discussion as well. Now, moving to neighboring Dhaka. After Dhaka, India closes 2 more visa application centers in Bangladesh's Rajshahi and Khulna amid a worsening security situation in the country. The development came a day after a group of radical Islamists under the banner of July Oikya organized a protest march near the Indian High Commission, pressing several demands, including the return of ousted Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. This happened despite Delhi flagging a rise in open hate towards India, especially the northeast under the interim government led by Muhammad Yunus, which seeks to build closer ties with Pakistan at the cost of Bangladesh's historic ties with India. Now for this discussion, we welcome former Ambassador Suresh Goyal. He's a former diplomat, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for staying with us. Now, how do you analyze the situation escalating between India and Bangladesh, and also looking back at their history of good relations, and how do this recent closure of Indian visa centers in Bangladesh reflects the state of bilateral relations?
I wouldn't go to the extent of calling it a situation between India and Bangladesh at present, even though it is escalating quite rapidly rather, and a parliamentary committee of the Indian Parliament has already labeled the situation now, as far as India-Bangladesh relations are concerned, as the most critical after 1971, only next to what happened in 1971. 2 or 3 elements I would put here really. Number one, any security of any diplomatic mission, not just Indian, but security of any diplomatic mission and post in Bangladesh is the responsibility of the Bangladesh government. If the government of Bangladesh, even if interim, allow the situation to come to the extent that we need to close the mission to ensure security of our personnel, it is shameful.
Yes, indeed.
I'm sure if they were careful, they would be able to avert situation coming to the extent when we need to take this kind of extreme measures, closing the visa offices. That is number one. Number two, the fact that all these movements are being controlled or being created by the Islamic elements in Bangladesh is creating a fear that you have the phenomenon of Islamic fundamentalism taking control of governance in Bangladesh. Now, it's rather sad that after 1971, after Bangladesh, and I admire the culture of Bangladesh. That's a place. I have been to Dhaka, and despite being majority Muslim, I have seen Durga Puja being celebrated by the Bangladeshis with the equal gusto and energy as in Kolkata or anywhere else by the Bengali community, whether in Delhi or anywhere at all. So now to see that the Islamic element should take control of the society there and begin to threaten the existence or the safety of a diplomatic mission is rather embarrassing. That is number one. Number two, what is even more critical as far as my thought process is concerned is that if the future elections are going to be impacted by the Islamic citizenship, that's a danger signal for Bangladesh.
Yes. Thank you for highlighting.
I think we need.
Indeed. Thank you for highlighting that. With that, I would like to thank Ambassador Suresh Goyal for joining us today and sharing that insight throughout our news. Thank you very much. Now we move the focus on to Middle East. At least 10 police officers were injured during violent riots involving ultra-Orthodox protesters in Jerusalem, forcing police to use tear gas to disperse the crowd. The unrest broke out after municipal inspectors issued parking tickets to several yeshiva students and discovered they were draft evaders. When officers attempted to transfer the students to military police, bystanders intervened and the confrontation quickly escalated. Protesters hurled stones, overturned a police vehicle, and clashed with security forces in the streets. Footage from the scene showed chaotic confrontations, including officers using batons to push back demonstrators. Authorities say order was eventually restored, while tensions remain high amid ongoing disputes over military conscription within the ultra-Orthodox community. Now we move on to our next news. Study author says tech companies are repealing benefits of artificial intelligence age, but society is left to pay costs. Reports suggest that the AI boom has caused as much carbon dioxide to be released into the atmosphere in 2025 as emitted by the whole of New York City. The global environmental impact of the rapidly spreading technology has been estimated in research published, which also found that AI-related water use now exceeds the entirety of global bottled water demand. The figures have been compiled by the Dutch academic Alex de Vries Gouw, the founder of Digiconomist, a company that researches the unintended consequences of digital trends. They claimed that they were the first attempt to measure the specific effect of artificial intelligence rather than data centers in general, as the use of chatbots such as OpenAI's ChatGPT and Google's Gemini soared in 2025. The figures showed the estimated greenhouse gas emissions from AI use are also now equivalent to more than 8% of global aviation emissions. His study used technology companies' own reporting, and he called for stricter requirements for them to be more transparent about their climate impact. The IEA has reported that the largest AI-focused data centers being built today will each consume as much electricity as 2 million households. Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Carrie Lay. Carrie Lay Miller. She's a managing partner of IDA Ventures, joins us live from New York. Thank you very much, Ms. Carrie, for joining us. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, how serious do you believe the environmental impact of AI boom to be? Do you think it is being underestimated by the public and policymakers alike?
Absolutely, what you said, I don't think it's underestimated. It feels invisible because it's software, but behind these massive data centers, we do consume an enormous amount of energy and water, electricity and water. And what's interesting is surprising people is the scale. Things are happening extremely quickly in the AI boom and technology boom, and it's not a marginal issue anymore. If it doesn't improve and the efficiency doesn't improve, the government and the environmental costs will rise significantly.
Right. And how transparent do you believe major technology companies are about the environmental footprint of their AI products, and what should change?
Great question. Transparency is improving. There still needs to be some rules and regulations that are going to be surrounding what's going on. And you see it in many different industries, energy and transportation. The government has already stepped in to make sure that it's regulated, and just based on the energy that's going to be used, there's the real trade-offs, and the government has taken notice, and I think better decisions are in the route for business and society.
Thank you for highlighting that. And lastly, from a societal perspective, how should governments balance the economic and technological benefits of AI against its growing environmental costs?
So it doesn't need to be a trade-off between innovation and sustainability. The smartest path forward for innovation is about performance. And right now, there's so many companies that are focused on this. It really, for one of the things that we hear a lot about is quantum technologies. Quantum technologies, the power that is used, the hardware and infrastructure around it right now takes the place of a soccer field. And moving forward, it's going to increase the energy output that is needed. Companies like Quamcore have developed technologies that are moving these soccer fields into one computer. And companies are already, like incredible companies are already coming to market to deal with this. And I think we're going to see this as a big, big focus. This is an article that just came out. There's going to be so many others.
Very timely and insightful. So excellent. I have no idea. Thank you very much for sharing that and joining us, Ms. Carrie Leigh Miller, and all the way from New York. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.